Welcome everyone. Welcome to the iText Ditto 1.5 webinar about our wizard-based data-driven PDF templating tool. Erwin Buggenhout is here with us today. He's the product manager for iText Ditto, and he'll be guiding you through the latest release of our low-code templating engine. And my name is Karin. Welcome everyone. Before I hand it to Erwin, a few practical items. So we will have a Q&A at the end of this session, but you don't need to hold off posting your questions to us. You can send them already now during the course of the webinar, and we will pick them up then at the end. You can use the Q&A, the questions tab or the chat tab of the GoToWebinar panel for that. Or you can also contact us at marketingitextpdf.com. We'll be recording the webinar. We will be uploading the webinar on YouTube in a couple of days, and you can also access the link to the recording in an email, which you will receive in a couple of days as well. So you can always review the recording of the webinar. Feel free as well to share on social using hashtag iText if you are a fan of iText Ditto. I think that's about it from my end, Erwin. I give the floor to you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Karin. So also on my behalf, so to everybody joining us from the Americas, good afternoon. Everybody who's joining us from Europe or the Middle East or Asia, good evening. And honestly, if you're joining us from another part of the world, I think it's really time to reconsider your kind of work-life balance, but welcome nonetheless. So indeed, as Karin mentioned, we're going to talk about our wizard-based data-driven PDF templating engine, iText Ditto, and more in detail version 1.4 and 1.5 of Ditto, so the latest two releases combined. What are we going to talk about? So maybe I'll just, to be able to focus a little bit more on the presentation here, I'll switch off my camera. What are we going to talk about? Well, we'll talk about Ditto in a broader perspective of the, or in the broader iText product portfolio. We're going to zoom into iText Ditto, of course, and give a short overview of the actual product. But I don't want to spend too much time, honestly, in PowerPoint. And what we obviously want to do is spend some time into the actual product. So we're going to do a live demo also of iText Ditto during this session. And there's also, just before the demo, we're going to do a little poll question, so a little quiz. It's not to check whether you have paid attention. It's just because we want to know what's important to you. And after that, we'll also have time for a Q&A. So I'll try my best to be brief and concise. It's not one of my best qualities, but still, I'll try my best. So first of all, if we look at iText, if you already know iText, then most probably it's because of our developer tools. Most people that are using iText products are using these developer tools. They've been around for 20 years now. They've been around longer than iText because we first had our code base, and then only after that, many years later, we started the company to kind of support the code base actually. So what is that all about? What are the developer tools all about? Well, with our core library, you can basically do anything imaginable concerning PDFs. You can create PDFs, you can redact PDFs, you can take HTML and turn it into a PDF. You can create and flatten XFA forms if you want to. You can start from a scanned document and OCR that and turn that into a PDF. You can turn a PDF into an image. You can kind of support script-based languages in a PDF. You can redact a PDF to get to sensitive content and sweep that basically from that PDF. So all of these things are possible using our developer tools, our core library with all of its add-ons. Now, the thing that is most important there is that all of these tools actually require you to be a developer. If you're not a developer, I guarantee you there's basically nothing you can do with those tools. If you are a developer, the sky is the limit in terms of what you can do there to create and manipulate PDFs. So we thought a couple of years ago, we started thinking about kind of expanding that tool set, creating also a couple of what we would call high convenience tools. And the high convenience bit is about the fact that these tools that are in that kind of product line also have components that non-developers can use, that business users like normal mortal people can actually use. So in these convenience tools, or high convenience tools, basically iText Ditto is the exponent of that. But there's also iText PDF to data, which we covered I think in the previous session of this kind of webinar series. These tools have both have in common that they use the same three big concepts. In fact, so there's a concept of data, there's a concept of template, and there's a concept of a PDF. And if we look at iText PDF, basically what it does, it starts from a PDF. It uses a template to kind of lay over that that PDF in question, and then it extracts the data from that PDF. So by using the template, we kind of know where exactly we can expect data to be placed on that PDF document, and then as such we can extract the data from it, and then we have that data as structured data, which we can pass on to other applications like CRM or ERP applications, or any other kind of line of business applications that you may have. Or you can, for instance, pass that data onto something like iText Ditto that needs the data as its input. So structured data is where we start from in Ditto. When we're talking about iText Ditto, it's typically a JSON data that we expect, but then we use a template to kind of create a blueprint of a document that we're going to produce, and that blueprint can also contain placeholders for for data injections at runtime. Okay, so that's the template part, and then finally, after you have that template and you have that data, if you combine those two, kind of marry those two, what you get in Ditto, and that's the aim of the game there, is PDF documents. Okay, so if we zoom into that a little bit more, so this is kind of the same story, but kind of told in a different way. So we're starting from data with iText Ditto. Data can come from databases, can come from web forms, user input through web forms, can come from connected applications that you kind of reach into through APIs or whatever you do. But there the intention is to finally come up with a JSON file, and that JSON data structure, once you have that, you can use that to create placeholders for data in a template. The template is built in the first iText Ditto component that is here on the screen, and that's the iText Ditto editor, which is what you see is what you get, template design experience that runs in the browser. You can run it behind your firewall, you can run it in the public cloud. That's basically up to you to decide. But that's where you create those templates. So that there's a design aspect to that. So it comes with an easy to use designer. But there's also the data binding aspect to it. So the creation of those placeholders for data that comes from that JSON, of course. And you can also build business logic into those templates. And the building of the business logic is kind of focused on the business user. So you don't have to be a developer to create that business logic. I hope that I can show you later on and convince you that it's so pretty straightforward and everybody can do it. If we look at the API then, that's the second big iText Ditto component. That's basically where the heavy lifting happens. That's where you generate those PDFs. So you kind of pass a template and you pass data, JSON data, and the output of the PDF producer methods, that's the main method of the API, is going to be a PDF that is generated. And typically you do that in bulk. We have different flavors of that API component. There's the native Java replication. That's one option, but you can also use it as a REST API, which can be served up in Docker containers. So we support containerization of the entire solution as well. There's also a command line interface, which is typically used for testing and so on and so forth. But in production, we typically see either the Java version or the REST API version running in Dockers. Okay, so if you have been watching the earlier or the previous couple of webinars, then probably this picture is familiar. Because it kind of shows the evolution of a document, or the flow of a document, full document ecosystem, if you want to, starting from something that we scan to finally something that we're going to store. So in our previous webinars, we kind of covered the recognize part, where we started from a scanned document, a document that we would have scanned, and then through optical character recognition, we kind of turned that into a PDF. Yeah, and it was stored as a PDF-A, so for archiving purposes. And then the next thing we did was sweep that, get that through a PDF sweep to redact the actual document, to get rid of some sensitive information inside the documents, and then save it again as a PDF-A. So that's PDF-A is basically in a PDF that is ready for long-term archiving, basically. Then in the previous webinar that we did, we kind of focused on PDF to data, which is our tool to extract data from a PDF, so that the PDF that we got after we swept and after we scanned and so on and so forth, we used that to kind of get the data, scrape the data from that PDF, and have it as an XML. So that was the output of the series of webinars so far. We're at the point where we have that XML, and then the next thing we're going to do is use that XML, that structured data, convert that to a JSON, so we have a different data format, and then use that JSON in iText data to create a new kind of document. So the document that we're going to produce, as you may remember from the previous sessions, the document that we kind of scanned and extracted the data from was an invoice. So I'm going to use that invoice together with like a bunch of other invoices that we that went through the same process to create an invoice overview PDF today with iText Ditto. Okay, so this is going to be the process today. We use the extracted data, and then we're going to create that invoice overview document. Okay, but before we zoom into the actual demo, I suggest we do the poll.
Yes, so we have a poll question prepared for you. Just a question to understand where you see the biggest challenges when it comes to designing a template. I will launch now the poll, so you should see a pop-up with the question. Yeah, so the pop-up is now visible. Which aspects of template design do you find most challenging? And you can answer, you can give multiple answers. So which of the following aspects of template design do you find the most challenging? Is it designing the template without a WYSIWYG interface? Or is it gathering business logic requirements from the business user? Or perhaps it's more data related, transforming and injecting data. A fourth option we have is handling complex elements such as images, expanding tables or barcodes. Or perhaps you find it the biggest challenge is to making sure that the PDFs that are generated comply with the accessibility standards, so with PDF UA. So which of these do you find is the most challenging when it comes to working with PDF templates, creating PDF templates? So multiple answers are possible. See, quite some people are still answering. So 5 options. I think people have finished now. So I'll close it and then we should see the results immediately. Yeah, I will share the results. Can you see them, Erwin?
Yeah, if I'm gonna enlarge the screen a little bit more.
Yeah, so the top
It looks like,
answer is the complex elements.
yeah, okay. So like things like tables and barcodes and images and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine, I can kind of relate to that. If you are, through a coded experience, get a requirement from the business to include things like pictures or expanding tables or barcodes or maybe other more complex elements, I can imagine that it is definitely a challenge. The good news is that with iText Ditto, basically, if you are having that challenge, you've come to the right webinar, that's for sure. Because with iText Ditto, these are kind of point and click challenges, which are very straightforward. Everybody can do these things. So I'll try to spend some time on such things, like for instance, including in a QR code in a template during the actual demo. Okay, so thanks for that, Karin. So maybe back to the presentation.
Yeah.
I am sharing the screen again. I switched it off for a second. That was not intended, but here we are. So let me just take it back to PowerPoint just for one more slide, and then we're going to go for some live action here. So basically, what we see over here is basically what we're going to do during the demo, what we're going to talk about during that demo session that's coming up. So we're starting from that XML. Basically, that was the output from the iText PDF to Data webinar. We convert it to a JSON. That's something that you can do automatically, but that could also be a manual process. You can, the JSON can be enriched with some data that's coming from somewhere else. Can be, like a collated kind of a JSON as well, where you have multiple of these XML outputs combined. So once we have that, you can use that JSON, and that's what we're going to do to kind of build a template. So we have this invoice overview template that will create PDF UAs. So that means accessible PDFs that can be read out loud by screen readers and support other kind of assistive technologies. So that's the bulk of the thing. And if we have the time to do it, and I definitely hope so, we're also going to generate a PDF using the REST API that runs in a Docker container. In this case, it's going to run on Docker desktop that I have running here on my local PC. So without much further ado, let's get out of this presentation. Yep, and let's get into the actual tool. So you're looking at the iText Ditto editor right now on the screen. So what I intend to do is walk you through the user interface real quick and then show you how a couple of things are done, focusing mainly on the new features in version 1.4 or 1.5. So if you're already using iText Ditto, I'm going to try to make this as interesting as possible by focusing on the new features and not the features that you already use on a daily basis. So basically, if you look at the interface, starting from left to right here, so first of all, you typically load the templates, or you start creating it by creating a new template. That's an option as well. Just start on you start with loading that template, and you can go to the template settings, for instance, where you can switch to PDF UA mode, or can leave it on PDF if you want to as well. Where you can set a title, where you can set the language, so the screen reader kind of knows which language to use to read it out loud, and so on and so forth. But typical settings as well here are things like the orientation of the page, the size of the page, margins for the page. You can, as you can see, you can use the full size of the page. You don't have to have margins at all if you want to. Okay, so let's apply that. So these are our settings. And then another interesting thing here is those resources panel. Typically, if you want to use images, but you can also use it to load custom fonts and so on and so forth. So if you want to use static images in your template, you can kind of bring them in through resources. Obviously, you can also bring in pictures or images from the data. If you have a URL that points to an image in your JSON data, you can use that. Or if you have like a base 64 kind of binary encoded blob of data that can be rendered into an image, we can use that as well. So what else do we have here? Well, style sheets. In style sheets, it's kind of funny, but it's something that you'll seldom use, because actually, why would you need style sheets? Well, to do any kind of thing that's not possible through the properties panel. And as a matter of fact, all of the elements that we have here in the template canvas here in the middle, all of these items like pictures or text or tables or table rows and so on and so forth, they have properties. And this property panel allows you basically to do all the settings for your images, for your text, and so on and so forth. Like accessibility settings, for instance, there's an alternative description here for this logo, like paragraph styles, like how do we want to align this? Do we want an indent? Do we want a certain fixed line height that we want to set, and so on and so forth. So layouts, like for this image, we decided that the width of the image should be 80% of the box that it's in. In this case, that's a table cell. So it kind of uses up 80% of the available space there. We can set a background color if we want to. We can set the same thing like we did for the width, but then for the height. We can do margins, paddings, and so on and so forth. Styles, border styles. Like we can give this image a border that can be like a solid border. It can be a dotted line, and so on and so forth. And we can also set a radius over here, like if we want to give that image rounded corners. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do here through the properties. But there's still this kind of template style sheets thing over here that you can use if you want to do something that we don't have a style for, or that we don't have a property for in the properties panel of the element in question. So it's still possible. So if you want to do like crazy things through CSS, like making this rectangle, for instance, like something like a skewed rectangle or something like that, like a trapezoid or whatever you call that in English, that's possible as well. So that's some advanced CSS that you can write, and the good thing is that you can use it. You can just use it. Like we just had this question coming in, like we want to use a text on top of a picture. Well, then you can set a picture as a background image through CSS, and then you can put your text on top of that. Easy peasy if you know some CSS. Okay, so that's kind of the general theme. We try to be as business user friendly as possible, but we don't hate developers, of course. We're iText, we're a developer company. So it's if there is something that we can kind of give developers to help out, where our business users need help from a friend, then obviously we provide it. Like this template style sheet panel will come in handy if you're a developer. What else do we have here on the interface? We have this template elements part. Let's make it a little bit larger, where you can actually navigate the structure of the template. So typically what I do when I create a template is I create a bunch of subforms, and within those subforms, I put my content. Like for instance, there's this header table over here, and then we have this overview table where we see an overview of our invoices, and then there are the invoice details and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's basically how that all works. Cool thing here is the toolbox. So if you want to add something to your canvas, like rich text or like such a subform or a table, you basically click those elements and you bring them in. Same thing for a barcode. Like these are more complex things. Of course, you just click the item, and in this case, it'll walk you through a wizard to insert that barcode in question. Okay, that's one part. That's the design. So that's how you do all of that. It's fast, it's easy. You'll see your business users will be able to really do it. I always use myself as a reference. You know, I was trained, you know, as a translator, so English and Italian and Dutch. So basically, I'm no computer wizard, not at all, and still I came up with this template, which, if you run it through a preview, turns into a pretty good looking PDF document. By the way, this is the data that we're going to use. I'll talk about that data in just a second. Okay, so this is a preview. You can run a preview at any time to see what your document would look like if you can merge the data in there. And if we look at what we have over here, it starts off with an overview of different invoices that we have, and based on the fulfillment status of those invoices, we will kind of color code this fulfillment fulfillment status kind of data binds over here. So like we use orange for queued for payment, we use red for will not pay. There's also case conversion here because these in the data, all of these values are in lowercase, and we put them in uppercase here, and this is lowercase as well, where we kind of, you know, capitalize the first letter here. That's what we do with automatic case conversion as well. What else is there to talk about? Well, here this date formatting is something that we made a lot easier in the 1.5 release, and you can apply it here on those dates. You can also apply it on the calculations that we have over here. So we did a couple of calculations to come to these results, like the paid amounts, the total queued, and the total rejected. And you know, as you can see, we format those as currency amounts. If we scroll down, you'll see a detail of each of those invoices. And one of the things we added there is kind of a phony link. It's always linking to the itextpdf.com website, like a link to the invoice record in a back office system. So if you present this report, for instance, to management, and they want to zoom into the actual record, they can do so by just scanning this code on their phone, and then they are in the back office system looking at the record in question. So the same kind of formatting, conditional formatting, we also applied in here on the details, right? So 2 things. Where the heck did we get that data? That's one thing. And how did we map that into that document template? And how did we manage to color code those items? So, and how did we come up with that kind of what is it, that QR code as well? So I'm going to try and show you those things real quickly. Starting from the data, so what we actually did is we started here from you know, the output of the XML output of the earlier session, where we had this you know, this XML that we created, and then that XML, we basically took that and we combined it with more XML and then turned that into a JSON. So that's a conversion. You can do that automatically. We did it here manually. We also added a couple of additional fields that would work well in the demo. And basically, this is our data. So we have an array of invoices. As you can see, there's a bunch of invoices over here, and each of those invoices, I think it's this one that we want to show with the sharks and so on, and the lasers. Here we are. Each of those invoices have their line items, and those get mapped into that document template, and that's how you produce that document that we saw in the preview earlier on. So that data, you basically paste that in the second mode that we have. So we have this design mode, and then we have this data binding or data mapping mode. And there you basically paste that JSON. If you paste a JSON in there, it will automatically turn into this kind of neatly formatted structure that you then can use to kind of drag and drop items into the canvas. And then you create data binds, and those data binds are then kind of resolved at runtime. So you can do this expanding tables and so on and so forth. You can do the calculations using those data binds and so on and so forth. Okay. Some of the items can be inserted conditionally, so we can do conditional content. We covered that in the last Ditto demo, so I'm not going to focus too much on that. But what we can also do is format items conditionally. And like, for instance, what we did with the text color by fulfillment status. You remember that you saw some of the items in orange, other items were printed in red. And for that, we created what we call a conditional style. And creating such a conditional style is always also something it's kind of typical of iText Ditto, something that is really straightforward to do. Basically how you do that is you kind of create multiple conditions, and then depending on the condition, you define how things should be formatted. Like, for instance, this condition, like when things are queued for payment, color should be orange. When they're, kind of will not pay, if that's the status, then there should be red. And the default, if nothing is set there, if it's not will not pay, or if it's not queued for payment, the fulfillment status, then the color of the text will be the default text color. Yeah. Adding those conditions or editing those conditions is very simple. We actually use a wizard right here, where you select the field, or you just use the bound value in question. Use it as text or number or true or false field. Set an operator and then a value to compare with. And that's how you set that condition. Okay, so pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Also, the way in which you kind of define how dates and times and so on should be formatted, or currency fields should be our values should be formatted in the resulting document is something that we enhanced, that we made more user-friendly. You used to have to basically write a pattern here, and now you can just indicate that a certain data binding that you put in the template can be formatted, or has to be formatted as a date, as a currency, as a percentage, and so on and so forth. Okay, so for instance, if you select date time, in this case, you can also indicate whether you want to have the date only, or only the time portion of that, or even if you still want to use that pattern, you can do that. You can click custom and so on and so forth. And then you basically can just choose out of a set of available patterns, right, for the locale in question. If you would switch this to Thai or to German, then you'd see something different, of course. Okay, what else do we do, or have we done here? There's this QR code, which I already kind of demonstrated. Straightforward, you just basically select which kind of a barcode you want to use. In this case, that's a QR code, and then you link that up to a field in your data set, and then you can set some more code specific settings for the barcode in question, and then it gets added basically to to the template. When you're done editing, basically what you do is export the template, and that will create this .ditto package, this invoice overview .ditto package, and that is what you can use as a matter of fact if you are running the API. So you kind of export this, and then you kind of drag and drop this into the work folder. Let me just bring it up into the work folder of your API instance. I have this invoice overview .ditto file here already, so I kind of dragged and dropped it in there. And then if you have a Docker container up and running, let me check if I have one. So I have this instance up and running on my local machine over here. Then I can use those templates from the API to start generating documents. And the requests can be very simple. So to basically define or to basically generate a document, what you do is basically just call the PDF producer method of the API. and you send it a pretty straightforward request. Actually, it's only just a couple of lines that you have to write here, where you first of all specify a template project that you want to use. That's that invoice overview, and then within that template project, use a specific template. So that's the invoice report weekly. So that's the template that we have been looking at earlier on. Now from line 4 to line 592, what we're actually passing is data. So that's just a blob of data of JSON data that we put in here, and then we can, but we're not even kind of we don't even really have to define a path. If we don't define a path, we just stream the PDF back as a byte stream instead of kind of a path to retrieve the PDF file. And that's it. That's the request we have to send. And if we send that request, it's going to actually generate a file for us. So we're sending the request as we speak. And so the result we get is this 10-page PDF that has been produced. Where there's also a report where we kind of check whether there's anything wrong with the template or not, whether anything went wrong during the production report. Imagine that instead of a URL, I sent like just a word or like a number to the fields that we use to generate that QR code, and that's not going to work. Then we're going to get an error or a warning in the PDF production report. But the more important thing here is that we actually have our template, have our document produced here. So that's what we have over here. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to show you today in this session. And with that, I think I might open it for Q&A.
Yep, sure. I see we have again quite a few questions coming in. Perhaps the first one from John. Does iText Ditto interact well with the other Artix tools? How does it interact with the other Artix tools?
Yeah, so obviously iText Ditto is an iText product, and it produces a PDF. So once you have that PDF, you can do all sorts of post-processing things with Core. So the Core PDF library, the iText Core 7, and one of the things that we see most often in terms of post-production is signing. So if people want to sign or put a digital signature on the generated document, they can do so by using our core library. That's for sure. Another option, for instance, is adding like a static PDF to the end of or somewhere in the middle of a document that is produced by iText Ditto. Once again, that's something that you can do if you also hold a core license.
Yeah, okay. I see more questions are coming in, so yeah, please don't hesitate to share your questions. We'll try to answer most of them. If we don't get to your question, you'll get an answer from our experts in the next few days. Rajesh is asking, does iText provide any mail merge feature with Java and PDF? So does iText provide any mail merge feature with Java and PDF?
With Java and PDF, well, that's an interesting question, but I think we should get back to it offline to rephrase it and to kind of get to the bottom of the question.
So Rajesh, we will be reaching out to you with an answer to your question. Philip is asking if Ditto is a non-Windows app.
It's a browser app. It runs in the browser. So basically, you can run it wherever you want, whatever the operating system. Doesn't really matter. So you can run it on Mac. You can run it. You can run it anywhere.
Okay.
Also, we also optimized it for Mac. By the way, we saw that a lot of our template designer users are using Macs, and we in terms of shortcuts, for instance, and short keys for a couple of things that you can do within the application, we depending on whether you are using a Windows machine or a Mac, you'll see different short keys, and also a different help file that will be activated where you can see which shortcuts work for which function. So yeah, that's covered, and it runs in the browser, so it doesn't matter what system you're using.
Okay, then several questions from Seth. Instead of a background image, can we use PDF as a background image?
Yeah, I've seen people do that. It's kind of funny, kind of, you know, like you want to start, for instance, from a form and you want to fill out that form. You kind of, we're pretty pixel perfect, so you can do that. You can actually kind of project a PDF to the background. I'd render it to an image, though. I'm not sure whether it's possible at all to really use the PDF as the background. It's probably going to be a picture. But then again, what I'm wondering is, do we really want to do that? Because it's, you know, it's so simple and so easy, and you're so fast creating a template in iText Ditto. Like the one that I showed today that I used for the demo here, I think it took me less than 2 hours, to be honest, to create that template. I think it's, you know, tinkering with an image in the background will probably take longer than generating or than recreating the actual template. We've seen that in many cases, to be honest.
Okay.
But obviously, just want to make sure. I mean, if there's a good reason to do that, there could be a very good business case or use case to actually use an image in the background, and let's definitely discuss that. But typically, you're so fast recreating the template.
Okay. Seth is also asking, can we overflow a line item listing to a different section on another page? So can we overflow a line item listing to a different section?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So if you're if you have a table, then you auto expand the table. It can perfectly overflow to the next page. So there's no problem whatsoever. Also, for instance, if you have a header row defined on your table, you can perfectly repeat that header row on the next page. So that's all covered. Yeah. So like you can expand it as much as you want. You can also, by the way, set a maximum number of rows that you want to have in a loop. You can also set a minimum number of rows, where you would, for instance, set a minimum number of rows, and you define that as 20, for instance. Then your table will always have at least 20 rows. If you only have 5 items in an array, then we'll just add 15 empty items, 15 empty rows after that. So that kind of thing, it's all supported. So whatever you want in terms of looping, I think you're covered.
Okay, let's take a question from Lidong, perhaps. How to set up orphan and widow control in table? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you set up orphan and widow control in it?
Orphan and widow control is supported through CSS. So if in the back, actually, we have this component running, which is called PDF HTML, and that a couple of months ago, that component got an update, in which there's now pretty spectacular orphan and widow control. And the good thing is we have it underneath the bonnet also in Ditto. So it's there. So basically, and I think it's 2 lines of CSS that you need to write to use it, to make sure that items keep like stick together, or are kind of pushed to the next page. So that's how we cover that. So, but you have to specify some CSS. I'm not sure if we have it on the knowledge base, but if anybody from our T-Sales team is listening in, this is definitely an article that we have to write on how you do that.
Earlier you talked about under the bonnet. There's a question about under the bonnet from Ash. Does iText Ditto have a .NET SDK? Does iText Ditto have a .NET SDK?
We don't have a native .NET API. We have the Java SDK that's there. But then we have the REST API. So you saw me use the REST API. What you're looking at right now is a REST API. It's pretty straightforward to use, but we don't have anything that you can load into your .NET IDE. I'm afraid, but something that we might consider in the future for sure. But we see in many cases we see the REST API being used because also it containerizes very well. So it's kind of the thing that is most popular among our customers.
Okay, I see we're running already 15 minutes over time. Perhaps 2 more questions. Steve is asking, does iText Ditto support some form of SSO? And how do you control access, especially within the context of integrating?
Yeah.
So
single sign-on. That's a good question. As a matter of fact, we are envisioning a third component within iText Ditto. So the 2 components that we have right now is the editor components where you design the templates, and then this API where you generate the documents. But we're going to add a third component, which is the manager components, the iText Ditto manager component, and that's going to be an administrative experience, like an admin experience, where you will manage your template, where we'll keep a version history on the templates, where you will be able to manage all those data collections that you want to connect to templates, where instead of exporting a Ditto package and loading up that package manually into an API work folder, that is all that's going to be in the manager component. That's all going to be managed from a kind of a repository standpoint, so that you automatically deploy that to your development environment, then promote it to your test environment, promote it through to your production environment in the end. And then to come to the actual question, we also have user management and single sign-on in there. I'm not sure whether single sign-on is going to be the first or going to be part of the MVP release, so the minimum viable release of that manager components, but it's definitely something that's on the roadmap and that we expect in one of the first updates after the initial release. By the way, the initial release of the manager components is planned for March 2021, so that's going to be there in the short run.
Yeah, indeed, something to look forward to. Perhaps a final question.
It's gonna be there before we get rid of the pandemic.
Who knows? Yes. Can iText Ditto templates be used to output HTML pages?
So basically, we have a PDF producer method. So unfortunately, at this point, we don't have an anything else producer method. So what it does is produce PDFs. So that's the aim of the game. In between, yeah. So the templates that we are using, there's an in between step. And that step is that we kind of fill out the entire template with the data in HTML first, and we get to a clean HTML, like a paged HTML, and that one is then converted to a PDF using PDF HTML in the back. That's actually kind of what happens under the hood. So there is this in-between step where we create that HTML page, or that HTML document, if you want. But this API is kind of black boxed, and that in-between step is not really accessible. But it's not the first time we get this question. I'm not sure whether it's always the same person in the webinars coming back and asking that same question, but it's not the first time we get it. So we might as well give it a little push in our ideation process.
Yeah. And before we conclude, there were also some people that asked regarding the licensing. If you can explain how the licensing works.
Yeah, I can. You know, there's this license a call that you can kind of do as well. So that's a get to the license method, and that kind of tells you when your license will expire, but also how many documents we have left. Because actually that's how we license. It's based on the volume of documents that you produce. We don't care about users. We don't care about how many templates you have. So the only thing that we want to license is the volume that you produce, and this is kind of subscription based as well. So there's an expiration date. Typically, you sign up for a year, and then after that year has passed, you kind of extend your subscription, or if you don't like it, stop your subscription. But basically, we also have that volume limit, that countdown. So basically, what actually happens is every time you generate a document, you lose 1 credit on your on your how do you call that, on your volume allowance. Yeah. And then, well, it keeps counting down until you hit the floor, and then basically you have to come back for another document allowance.
Very good. I think that's about it. Or was there anything else that you really wanted to share during this webinar, Erwin? Just thinking in the interest of time.
Thinking in the interest of time, I'm not going to share anything else, I think.
Okay, there are still quite some questions that we haven't answered, but rest assured we will be passing on these questions, your questions, to Erwin and his colleagues, and we will get back to you with an answer in the next few days. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. Feel free to browse on our website, the knowledge base. Erwin referred to it as well. And try iText Ditto yourself. You can simply request it, and you will get the necessary access to it. Then I would like to say thank you, Erwin, for presenting the session today. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
and thank you, everyone, for joining us today.